IFR Navigation. All right. I forgot there is, yeah, it's not just one, it's multiple things. Right? UR basics, RNAV basics. The weather won't always be perfect. Getting licensed to fly IFR is the best way to keep flying, even when visibility keeps you from flying VFR. This tutorial will introduce you to the world of instrument flight as you learn to climb and ascend solely on relying on your primary flight display, your PFD. Okay. Equipped with the G1000. Reach 4,500 feet while maintaining a heading of 270 degrees. Descend to 4,000 feet. Reduce power and maintain the same heading. Set cruise speed at 4,000 feet. Maintain heading and altitude. Okay. Where's my little notepad? Hope you've been doing well. Hope you're doing well with your training and your flying and your career stuff and mucking about with all the new planes. And I see they still don't have the marketplace up and running.
We're flying over the UK's Shetland Islands, just below a thick layer of clouds. Up until now, you've been able to look outside to judge the aircraft's attitude and location. What happens when you lose that outside view? That takes us into the world of instrument flight. When you can't use the horizon for reference due to clouds, darkness, or other hindrances to visibility, you'll need to rely on your airplane's instruments. When flying on instruments alone, you'll need to rely on your attitude indicator to see your pitch and roll information. Modern cockpits like this combine several instruments into one electronic display, called a primary flight display, or PFD. Stay on heading 270, set full power, and climb up to 4,500 feet. We're climbing up into the cloud layer. Notice how you're starting to lose your outside view. Instead of looking out the canopy, focus your attention on the cockpit instruments. You can maintain wings level using the attitude indicator. Continue climbing to 4,500 feet. The nose is too high, aim for no more than 10 degrees nose up. The nose was much too high.
Uh-oh.
Sped indicator and the altimeter level off at 4,500 feet, while continuing to maintain a heading of 270. Now fly straight and level at 4,500 feet, getting used to not having an outside horizon for reference.
Let me pause. And for those of you that are looking at instruments or want to see the instrument, let me get in much closer here. Dun, 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 dun. And you should be able to select a 4K setting down there. It may not be perfect until it, processes the stream, but it should be pumping out a high quality stream.
Okay, now keep us on this heading and take us down to 4,000 feet. Reduce power so that we can descend without gaining speed.
Okay, so I'm bringing it back to about 50% throttle. And I'm off course. I should be cheating. It's all about instruments, right? So should be using my autopilot. Okay, bumping the speed back up. So, looking at the autopilot. There we go. So 4,000 feet and heading 270 and letting the autopilot take it over now. Since we're doing instruments, I don't feel that it's cheating in any way to use the autopilot. Now, that's me, you know. So I'm gonna fly it manual. Go right. Go right ahead. I am so much into, wanting to learn how to fly. I wanted to get to this point. I wanted to finally be computerized and be able to do it by the instruments. I mean, I don't mind flying manually, but to me, the ultimate heights of all of this is, for me, it's a very Star Trek kind of thing. I want to be able to do everything as much as I can with the computer. With computers, with as much precision and efficiency. So when it comes to things like, well, you got to move people around and you got to not shake up the cargo and you got to do this and that. And, I'm getting kind of up there in age, and I get kind of jittery Kinius. So, my scores are bad enough. So I've been keeping an eye on the developer stuff, and again, I'm looking forward to everything that's coming. I did kind of want to just wait a little bit, and that's part of the reason why extending the break is just that let them get caught up. There's certain things that, they still haven't implemented that I want to have, and I'm in no hurry. This is episode 198. So, yeah, not really in a hurry. Spent some time mucking about with the VTOL aircraft that are available. When you purchase, you don't have to just purchase the standard version. You get access to the vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, the experimentals, and they're fantastic. And sadly, with the problems that have been happening with regard to people crashing airplanes, I think that's another reason why I enjoy wanting to learn how to do everything as much as I can computer assisted. Because every takeoff and landing up to right now, every takeoff and landing is a roll of the death dice. Even in great conditions, you might have a leg twitch. You might get a Charlie horse. You might forget something. Every time you take off and land in every aircraft up to this point in time, you're always rolling the death dice. Coming in for a landing, it's even on a, perfect weather or everything. There's always the chance. It's always a roll of the dice, no matter what you do. And so with the FAA was worried 20 years ago that at this point in time that there wouldn't be enough qualified pilots to run things, that it requires a lot longer training period, and a lot of the newer pilots don't maybe have as much just experience, simulator time, whatever the reason. It's, as you know, flying is hard. If you're serious at all about flight simming, you know that flying is really hard. I mean, not once you're up there kind of mucking around and just spinning around, but all the things that you have to know and learn to get licenses and to even think about becoming private pilot or a commercial pilot, blah, blah, blah. The amount of knowledge you have to have. And then on top of that, the amount of experience you have to have coming to understand everything that you've just learned. And all the myriad ways everything can go wrong. And that's why I love the simulator so much. Now, I don't fly in real life. One, I think I'm now more afraid of flying than I've ever been in my entire life. When I started doing this, oh, it's fun. It's a game. It's just a fun thing to do. And my dad used to fly for real. And, you know, I wanted to learn and blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, hey, it's just a fun thing to do. And then I got serious. And I want to think about maybe going and getting a sport license. Or work my way up to private pilot. So, learning everything that I can. Did we do something wrong? Maybe that's all I was supposed to do?
Great. Increase power again for cruise.
Oh, no.
4,000 feet.
So I did it, but then I didn't do it. I'm like, he's not talking a lot. I'm doing all the talking. So I did that. I decreased power, and you heard me say I decreased power, and then I increased power, but I didn't do it the way he wanted, so sorry about that. I'm a little bit nervous. It's been a while. I'm rusty. Got to try out this new game from Steam the other day.
Great job.
Oh.
That's how things look and feel making altitude changes on instruments alone. You'll find it gets easier with experience. Next, we'll introduce turns.
Fantastic. It was pretty certain. So I installed the latest NVIDIA driver yesterday. Everything went well. Things seems to be running well. Okay, it's nice. Okay, this tutorial will teach you how to change directions when you cannot rely on external references. In this lesson, you will be introduced to the multiple key elements of the G1000's primary flight display, performing some 20-degree turns while following different headings, maintain an altitude of 4,000 feet. Remember to start leveling the wings just before you reach your target heading. Make sure to raise the nose a small amount during a turn in order to maintain altitude. Yeah, a little bit of nose up. So anyway, yeah, I got to try out a demo of this game called Pirate Commander the other day. It's definitely no Sid Meier's Pirates, but it's in its own way. It's its own pirate game, not to be compared to anybody else. So I've got to just rate it for that. You know.
Now that you've tried some climbs and descents, we'll introduce turning. Throughout this lesson, maintain your current altitude of 4,000 feet. Our heading is the direction our nose is pointing, measured in degrees. The main electronic display in front of you is the primary flight display, or PFD. At the bottom center of the PFD, we see the horizontal situation indicator, or the HSI. The HSI shows us the direction our nose is pointing, called our heading. Headings are measured in degrees, with east being 090, south 180, west 270, and north 360. Currently we're heading west. That's 270 degrees. When turning, we want to aim for a bank angle of around 20 degrees. Along the top of the attitude indicator are white lines. Each line represents 10 degrees. Normally we use about 20 degrees of bank, which is the second white line. Let's try it out. Make a turn to the left onto heading 180, using 20 degrees of bank.
180, 20 degrees of bank. You know, I don't know if using the G1000, if it just automatically
Heading south, at which point
will keep the right bank.
wings level.
That seems to be, that's only 10 degrees, right?
That's it. Stop turning there and you'll be heading due south. Heading 180.
You didn't care about the turn.
Great. Now try and maintain this heading for a short while.
Easy enough. So I guess in the real world, when you get to this stage in your training, you're not, they put like a little Obi-Wan Kenobi visor on you, or these little
Now make a turn
blinders,
heading of 350.
so that you're not able to look out the window. You have to just rely on looking at your instruments. Oh, God. A little overzealous there. 350. I'm stupid. Okay. 350.
Now smoothly roll wings level onto a heading of 350. Now maintain heading 350 for a bit. Wow, great job. So that's how we make turns using just the instruments. Next we'll look at how to handle speed changes.
Okay. It is 20 minutes after the hour at 4:20 here. Broadcasting from a very cold Colorado Springs today. Not much snow left on the ground. Been getting a little in. It's been spitting here and there, but not much stuck. Yeah, but cold. Managing aircraft speed while flying instrument flight rules requires a pilot's full attention. This tutorial will teach you how to maintain a constant pitch attitude as your speed and lift changes, doing so by relying solely on instruments. Excuse me. Set and maintain different speeds while relying solely on instruments. Adjust your trim usage to stay level while changing speeds. Maintain a constant speed and pitch attitude while deploying multiple degrees of flaps. Okay. Need to get a move on.
We're cruising at 100 knots, maintaining our heading and altitude. Let's look at how we deal with speed changes when flying on instruments. When slowing down, the wings produce less lift. To counter this, you'll need to progressively raise the nose in order to maintain altitude. Give it a try. Reduce power and bring the speed back to 70 knots.
All right.
Remember to adjust the elevator trim so that you don't have to keep putting any pressure on the controls. Good. Now set power to maintain 70 knots. notice how the nose needs to be a little higher than before to make up for the loss of airspeed. Use the elevator trim to adjust pitch to the new sped and maintain 70 knots for a bit.
Go on.
Great, now increase power to get your speed back up to 100 knots. As we speed up, notice how you need to trim nose down to avoid climbing. That's it, now stabilize at 100 knots. Good, now we'll take flap settings into account. Flaps give a boost in lift, which you'll need to control in order to maintain our altitude. They also add drag, making us slow down more quickly, so be careful not to get too slow. Reduce power and slow us down to 60 knots.
Dang.
Good, now extend the flaps to 10 degrees. Now set flaps at 20 degrees. With the extra drag, start adding power so you don't drop below your target airspeed of 60 knots. Now stabilize at 60 knots and trim for level flight. Wow, great job. Next we'll look at navigating on instruments alone.
All right. Navigational aids remain an alternative to modern GPS navigation, allowing pilots to locate and orient themselves thanks to radio frequencies communicated from ground stations directly to aircraft cockpit instruments. Knowing how to navigate using the most popular of these nav aids, VOR, remains an essential skill to master while flying IFR.
Now that you have the basics of flying the aircraft on instruments, let's look at navigation. There is a worldwide network of radio beacons that pilots use to find their way when flying IFR. The most common beacon is the VOR. I've tuned the Sunberg VOR into your NAV radio, which we're going to fly toward. To get there, we'll use the Course Deviation Indicator, CDI. That's the green arrow and bar on the HSI. I've set the CDI for a course of 170. That means we want to arrive at the VOR on a heading of 170. The CDI shows us if we are on our selected course. If the bar is to the left of center, we need to fly to the left to recapture our course. The bar is currently over to the right, so keep flying on this heading and wait for the CDI bar to start moving towards the middle.
All right, so we're flying towards this bar. And when the bar starts moving in on us and it starts lining up with the arrow, we want to turn onto that radial. And it's slowly starting to come in now. So yeah, there's a radio station out there. Okay, so just for mental purposes, well, in a real way, it is doing this. What it's doing, imagine a radio tower out there, and it's shooting a laser beam out, one for every degree. So there's 360 laser beams shooting out from it. Okay. So Here,
Now
yeah.
left turn onto heading 170.
Okay. Okay, so it's shooting out a beam. And we're turning on to that beam now to go to it.
And it'll take us to the VOR.
And the closer we get to it, the more deviation you might get. It becomes way more accurate the closer you get. So you can see just a little bit off. So let me kind of just ease over a tiny bit. Yep. I'm gonna overshoot it. Okay, so pretty much there. So yeah, and you can also turn these arrows to get onto any beam that you want. So as you're approaching this thing, you know, this is just the one that he's got us set to fly in on.
We're getting close to the VOR now. The CDI indications might become erratic or disappear when reaching a VOR, but this is normal. Keep flying straight ahead on heading 170 for a couple miles.
Yeah, and usually when you pass right over the top of it, the arrow switches to the opposite direction, meaning that you're moving away from it. Right now, the green arrow would indicate that we're still moving towards it. But we kind of got one down now here. And then this arrow's pointing that way now. My speed was down a little low. Leave VOR.
Wow, great job. Now we'll turn our attention to a different type of radio beacon.
Okay. It took me forever to get my head around VOR. My brain didn't want to get it. Just didn't want to get it. And I just wanted to give up. I'm like, again, it's always, if I can't learn this, then what's the point? Just give it up. Give it up, give it up. RNAV, the most modern aviation navigation methods revolve around the use of GPS, Global Navigation Satellite System. An international constellation of satellites providing positioning information in real time. You probably know the most popular of these constellations, the American Global Positioning System, GPS.
The VOR system is a classic for navigating via instruments, but modern technology has opened the door for new navigation tools. Our flight plan is made of multiple GPS waypoints. We can use those to guide us when we can't count on visibility. For this lesson, we're going to follow a similar trajectory as in the VOR tutorial, flying over Sumburg Airport while maintaining an altitude of 4,000 feet. The system looks very similar to the VOR on the avionics. We'll use the CDI. That's the pink arrow and bar on the HSI. Looking at our flight plan, we can see that we're supposed to arrive at the waypoint on a heading of 170. The CDI shows us if we are on our selected course. We've deviated on purpose so that you can see how to catch up to your intended trajectory. Just like with VOR, the gap between the bar and the CDI arrow shows us the direction that we need to head towards to catch up to our course. The bar is currently over to the right, so keep flying on this heading and wait for the CDI bar to start moving towards the middle. Here it comes. Now make a left turn onto heading 170.
Now, what I've done is I've clicked it on a nav, and hopefully, yep, it'll turn to the course heading by itself. Hey, would you cut it out, buddy? I got my cat down here, who's been with me for years, my little co-pilot, and he's upset about something. Anyway, he's attacking my chair.
Great. Now keep the CDI bar centered and it'll take us to the waypoint.
So it took me forever to get my head around VOR. And it was a great day. You know, it's one of those just kept watching YouTube videos over and over, different people trying to explain it, get it through my thick head. You know, and finally one of those kind of moments. Oh, well, why did I make it so hard? And at that point, I got really happy because it was a big deal. Again, I was all, you know, I don't know if I'm going to want to keep learning how to do this stuff. If I can't do this, if I can't do basic radio navigation, then what's the point? And so, you know, making overcoming a hurdle like that, then it's like, okay, cool. Now I want to learn more. Using two VORs to triangulate, you know, and then going through and again, picking the vector, the radial that you want to be on, you know, learning how to find places on the map using VOR by picking a radial. And anyway, it's just, it started to become really wonderful, and learning how to navigate. So can't say I'm great, but I can now say I am a navigator. I can navigate the skies. I can navigate the skies properly. Was VOR tough for you, or did it just come easy? Some people, you're born with advanced DNA. You know, you must come from something that makes it easy. Some people, they get it. They're just born with advanced DNA to be pilots and navigators.
The CDI indications might become erratic or disappear when reaching a GPS waypoint, but this is normal. Keep flying straight ahead on heading 170 for a couple of miles.
Okay, arrow switch down, so passing over it. In your flight training time, maybe if not VOR, was any other particular subject difficult for you? What was your most difficult aspect of learning to fly?
I think a bit more practice may be a good idea.
Yeah, probably. What did I do? What didn't you like? Let's see what he had to say. What didn't they like? Really? Interception and flight at GPS waypoint. What? I don't know what I missed about it. He told me to just stay on the heading. Huh. Well, again, I have to do that one again. But sorry. Darn it. Gets back down to Earth with the assistance of the most common type of instrument landing aid in use today, the instrument landing system. The ILS transmits two different sets of data to the airplane's instruments, a localizer and a glide slope. The localizer provides lateral guidance, while the glide slope provides vertical guidance. The information provided by ILS is extremely useful, enabling pilots to stay centered on the runway while approaching at the right altitude and glide path, even when visibility is critically low. In this tutorial, you will have to keep a heading of 270 degrees and an altitude of 1,500 feet. Intercept the ILS localizer and align with the CDI. Initiate final descent while staying centered on the localizer and glide slope. Stop relying on ILS and switch to visual aids when you're close enough to the runway. Land smoothly and stop on runway by applying the brakes. Remember, the ILS indication becomes more sensitive the closer you get to the runway. The localizer is always to be intercepted before the glide slope. Okay. Good.
So now you've got the basics of flying on instruments. Now we need to get back on the ground. The most common landing aid is the Instrument Landing System, or ILS for short. An ILS uses two directional radio signals, one for lateral guidance called a localizer and the other for vertical guidance called the glide slope. The localizer provides lateral guidance, which directs you onto the runway centerline. The glide slope provides the intended descent angle onto the runway. The localizer is displayed with the CDI, much like in the VOR lesson. Keep flying on a heading of 210 at 1,500 feet and we'll watch for the localizer to come alive. The localizer is moving now. Make a gentle turn to the right, intercepting the localizer and keeping the CDI in the middle. Good, now keep the localizer bar centered and maintain 1,500 feet. The glide slope is displayed next to the altimeter on your PFD. If the green glide slope diamond is above center, you are below the glide path. We always start out below the glide slope, as we want to intercept the localizer first. We'll wait for the glide slope to start moving.
Okay, here's the glide slope diamond up here. Looking for the G on this bar here. See the diamond? Okay, so we're approaching it. Gotta imagine a laser beam shooting out from the runway to us, towards us. The two laser beams, one for the lateral and one for the glide slope.
1,500 feet until it almost reaches the center.
Okay, so right here, we're just talking about the center, this yellow bar here. When this diamond centers on this yellow bar, you want to hit your, you want to follow the glide slope down and keep the diamond centered, or you want to hit your approach button here on your autopilot, which I'm going to do. And that will...
Here it comes. Now reduce power a little and start to descend, using the VSI to aim for 500 feet per minute.
Okay, so hitting approach 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So now the airport, the runway, the whatever, the beams have now shaken hands with my airplane autopilot computer. And now the autopilot is handling the descent. Okay, all I've got to do is just
the localizer and glide slope indication centered all the way down to the ground.
Okay, all I've got to do, no,
you make your way down the ILS.
That's just it. All I've got to do is the power. Keep an eye on the power. Don't want to stall. You want to get into landing speed. Let me start bringing it down a little bit. We're still a little bit far out, but let's get it into flap range. Power management. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do 10 degrees flaps. Can you wait for me to finish landing, buddy, and then I'll let you out, okay?
This approach has an offset, meaning that the localizer and runway aren't lined up together exactly. Focus on following the ILS for now. We'll transition to a visual landing once we're closer to touchdown. Make only small corrections and remember that each will be more critical as we approach touchdown.
And you know, when we're using the state-of-the-art G1000 too, where you've got these lovely visualizations, I mean, you can see it. But going back to steam gauges and gauges before digital stuff like this, you know, trying to make out what you're doing. Kind of tricky. Let's go full flaps.
Great. Now is a good time to transition from flying on instruments to using visual cues to complete the landing.
Okay. So let me
onto the runway and then come to a smooth stop.
turning off the autopilot and just landing us based on the digital information. Again, back in the day when it's just steam gauges, kind of tricky.
Wow, great job. Great work. Next we will combine what you've learned into an IFR test.
All right. Good. Like 15 minutes left, so. Yeah, not the best landing. Little nose high happy.
All right, it's time to put what you've learned into practice. We're at 5,000 feet following a GPS.
Oh, hey.
I'll ask you to perform some handling tasks to test your IFR flying skills. Follow the GPS, as shown in magenta on your CDI, maintaining 5,000 feet and 110 knots.
He doesn't want to.
Okay, still maintain.
Oh my goodness.
Take us down to 3,500 feet, keeping 110 knots airspeed. Watch your speed, we want 110 knots.
Sorry.
Work on your speed control.
Oh my goodness. Should probably start this one over again. So my speed was all the way down from the landing. We want 3,500 feet. Still doesn't want to hold. Still on heading. Switch, buddy. Doesn't want to switch. He wants to do heading. Let's force that over until we can get it to switch over. The autopilot is bunged, doesn't want to switch out of heading. $110 knots. We're going to runway 27. There we go. 3,500 feet. So let me just kill the throttle there. Pardon me. Killed the throttle. If we can get down there. Yeah, he's not going to be happy with my performance at all. Three, 5.
Next, keep us at 3,500 feet and make a left turn onto heading 060.
Heading 060. Come on, come on. I don't understand, but okay. Pattern? Traffic pattern?
All right, let's throw some other things your way.
Hey.
Please bring the speed back to 70 knots.
Hey, Captain. That purple bar shows where your speed is going to be in the next, like, 10 to 30 seconds. So, I want 70, so right when it starts approaching 70, yeah, I want to make that little purple bar shrink up.
All right.
And try to
3,500 feet, 70 knots, and turn us to the right onto heading 225.
225.
Okay, now get us back to 110 knots.
All right, full throttle. So the purple bar shows again where you're going to be, where we're going to be in the next 30 seconds or so. 10 to 30 seconds, right? So as it approaches 110, we want to start pulling our throttle back. No, a little too soon. So as I'm going to get there, it's just going to take a little while longer. Come on.
Well done, but there's room for improvement.
Sure enough, that was horrible. Overall, though, not so bad, being a little rusty. All right. He liked my turn. But maintaining the GPS course, yeah. All right. So yeah. So I did it in 1 hour, the IFR navigation. So yeah, again, room for improvement, and I can do this again later. So let's go back, and the next episode, 199. Let's shoot for helicopters. I'll try to get that episode tonight. I'll try to do that tonight after dinner. So I'll come on and I'll try to make sure all my controls are configured. And then I'll do the helicopters and then see if we can get through, have more time tonight, see if we can get through gliding course and maybe some of these. FA-18 E-maneuver seems like a lot of fun. All right, well, I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad you're back. And again, I hope you're doing well, and you're having a lot of fun with the simulator. How are you feeling about it? Everything all right? You doing all right? Have you stuck to 2020? Have you actually moved up yet? So tell me all about it. So I will see you later in the evening.